Hi, I'm Mr. Miller, and this is a lesson on making a line graph. So first of all, a line graph is best suited to show how a measured quantity changes over time. So here are some examples of measurements that can be taken over time, and we can look at how they change over time. Things like the height of a person, or their foot size, or stock prices change over time. We can look at how population changes over time. Plant height can change over time. Somebody's heart rate can change over time. And temperature can change over time. Now, there's lots of other examples. I'm sure you could come up with some yourself, and you're welcome to add them into your notes here if you want. Now, when data is taken over time and graphed as a line graph, it's easier to see what we call trends. Simply put, a trend is a pattern in the change of data over time. So here are three simple descriptions you can use for trends. The first one is increasing. So if you've got some kind of a measured quantity, which is small and it gets larger, then we call this increasing. This is the trend. On the other hand, if you have a measured quantity which starts out large and gets to be smaller, then we call this decreasing. So the third possibility is that you've got some kind of measured quantity, and regardless of how big it is initially, it stays the same, so we call that constant. So let's look at a particular example of a line graph now. We're going to be looking at a table of values which has the value of a 2018 RAV4 hybrid and how we're expecting its value to change over time. So when you buy it brand new, year zero, it's worth $35,248. And it's been predicted that 1 year later it'll be worth $30,058. And 2 years after buying it brand new, it'll be worth $26,555. 3 years after buying it brand new, it'll be worth $23,472. Now, notice that year 4 years after buying it brand new, the value is missing here. So pay attention to that as you're making the graph, because it means that there's a little bit more of a jump to the next point that you're going to plot, year 5, when the value is $18,282. So to create this line graph, first we're going to plot all those points. And again, notice that each point is year after year, but there is a gap here. Year 4, the value is missing in that year, and so you'll want to leave that blank and then go on to year 5 and plot your point. So pay special attention to that and notice that the pattern is interrupted here, and so it's a little bit different. And some people accidentally scoot this point over here because they're just following the trend of or following the pattern of adding 1 year. Okay, but it's actually 2 years later after year 3. Anyhow, next what we want to do is sorry, we're not quite done yet. We've got to connect the dots. So let's connect the dots here, and that completes the line graph. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use the line graph to find the missing value of the vehicle in 4 years. So here's year 4, and if we draw a dotted line up to the line graph, we'll see where it crosses. So by connecting the dots between year 3 and year 5, this straight line here, if we look at year 4 where it crosses that line, this will tell us, now we'll work our way across, we'll be able to predict the value of the car in that year. And so I'm estimating that to be about $21,000. So this is an approximately equal to sign. And that's going to be my answer, is approximately $21,000. Now, because I used a graphical technique to get this answer, Some people may get slightly different answers than me. Some people might say 20,000 and change. Some people might say 21,000 and a little bit more, but we should all be around the same value. The name of this graphical technique is called interpolation. And inter, you should look at it and say, oh, inter, that means between two things. So it's a point between points that we already knew. The next thing we're talking about is the trend in the data. Now, it's pretty obvious to tell that the value of the car is decreasing over time. And that's certainly acceptable for an answer. But if you want to be a little bit more detailed, take a look at it. And this is why line graphs are particularly good, because we can see by how steep this line is, it's a very fast change in the value of the car in the first year. It decreases a lot. In the second year, it doesn't decrease by as much. So this line being less steep means that things aren't changing as fast. And the next year, things aren't changing as fast either. And then this line is also becoming less steep. And so the change over time is not as great. So if I was going to describe that in words, I'd say something like this. The rate of decrease is also decreasing. Or the amount that the value of the car is decreasing by becomes less and less each year. So now let's use the graph to predict the value of the car, when the value of the car will be 15,000. Now the trouble is, if you take a look at 15,000, our graph doesn't go that low. And you can just see from the table of values, it doesn't go down to 15,000. But we can see by the trend that since the value is decreasing, at some point, if we were to extend this, it would cross that $15,000 mark. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to draw a straight line to extend this graph. And the slope of this straight line, I'm just going to continue based on the last line that I drew. I'm going to draw the same slope here. So just extend my ruler and draw all the way until I've crossed over that $15,000 mark. And now I go to 15,000 and I draw a straight line or a dotted line and I mark where it crosses that line. And now I drop down to the time axis and read that off. Now I'm estimating that to be about 6.25 years. Some people may say a little bit less, maybe closer to 6 years. Some people may say a little bit more, 6.4 years, 6.3 years. But we should all be in the same ballpark. We should all be saying it's about 6.25 years. The name of this graphical technique is called extrapolation. And notice the difference between interpolation and extrapolation. So they both end with polation. And I'm not sure, but I think that has something to do with points. But the extra means that we are finding a point that is extra, that is beyond the set of points. Remember, our points only went up to here, and I extended them when I went beyond the points that we already had in our data table. So the next thing I'd like to do is look at, and I should mention, although I didn't do it here, maybe I'll just add it in now. I didn't put a title at the top of this. So let me just add this in right now. So this is the, I'm going to give you a fancy word here. It's called the depreciation of the value, I guess that should be capitalized, the value of a 2018 RAV4 hybrid. There we go. So depreciation of value of our RAV4 hybrid. Okay, so it's got a title now. Yeah, generally when we're making graphs, I like to make sure that we have a good descriptive title here, both axes labeled. We want to make sure that the Increments are all the same along the horizontal axis, starting from 0 up to as high as we need to go, and same thing on the vertical axis, 0 up to the maximum number, broken down into equal amounts. So now we've got a good graph. All right, let's take a look at how we do that in Excel now. So you can see I've already put the data into a table, and I'm just going to select this data, and I'm going to go Insert. And now if you look at the recommended charts, it actually recommends a scatter plot. Now that is exactly what we want to have, but I also want to point out to you that some of you might be looking here and saying, oh, well, this looks like what I want to do. I want to do a line graph. And if you do something like this, then you'll notice that there's actually two lines that it does, and this is really not what we want. So in case it's not clear, what's happened is they've got the 35,000, 30,000, and so on, so on, so on. This last point is not in the right place. So it should, remember we had our graph, there was a bit of a gap before the next point. So it's just put all these 5 values equally spaced, which they shouldn't be. And then it's also graphing, as I'm just going to click on this, notice that as I click on this one, it highlights that it's plotting the years 0, 1, 2, 3, and then 5. So this is really not the kind of graph that we want to do. It's not like we're doing a double bar graph. It's not 2 sets of values. It's we want these to be on the x-axis, the horizontal axis, and we want these to be on the y. So I'm going to delete that one. So again, it's not just a simple 2 sets of data line graph, but it's actually in Excel, it is called a scatter plot. So you can either find it under recommended charts here, or the other possibility is that you go here. This is XY scatter, and this is really what we want. So you could just do the dots, but I think it's nice to do the dots and also have them connected. So that looks kind of like what I did over here. So now I'm just going to add some of the elements that we're missing. I'm going to take this title at the top and I'm going to put depreciation of the value of a 2018 RAV4 hybrid. And now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the vertical axis and actually it's going to add titles for the axes, so the horizontal as well as the vertical. And so now I can go in here and I can say this is the value in dollars, and this is the years after purchase, if you like. All right. So, and notice that this is done properly now, where it's got 0, 35,248. It's got 1, $30,058, 2, 26,555, 3, 23,472, and it's got nothing for year 4. So there's a gap here. Remember how that wasn't the case when we did the line graph? And it's got this properly spaced out now. At year 5, value is 18,282. Oh, notice as I hover over that, it even gives you the X and Y coordinates of that point. So, I think that's basically it, right? We got a title, we got both axes labeled, goes from 0 to the maximum value we need, both in the horizontal axis and the vertical axis. Other than maybe changing colors if you want to have particular colors. Oh, I like green. Then yeah, go ahead and play around with that and give it a shot for yourself. So thanks for watching this video. on how to make a line graph, and hope you have a great day. Bye.